There you go.
All right. Let's see if this actually works. Most things I try don't. Is anybody here? Hello, live channel. All right, everybody, how's it going? So over here, we have Better Biomed. I included a link in the description down below to his YouTube channel. I met him originally in 2015 when he sent me this Sennheiser microphone wireless box so that I could actually walk around when doing videos, which is why it is absolutely hysterical that he comes in the one day that I only have one wireless receiver here, so I actually am using my microphone via a wire. So that is everything coming around full circle. Thank you for coming by. He brought some stuff to show us. So what is this that we have over here? So I see a what looks like a giant light.
So this is this is Osram. It's almost like a projector light, and that's probably what it really is. So this is a light to a surgical microscope, and let's say these microscopes are worth $100,000 on the low end, $250,000, sometimes even higher based on whatever options are in it. But this is one of those things, we talk about right to repair, but this is how medical right to repair comes in, and it's a huge factor because this light bulb right here, how much do you think that thing costs?
If I was a normal person, I would say $200 to $300. But because of the smirk that you have and because of the industry that I've worked in, and I would they want like $20,000 for this, don't they?
Oh my gosh. Well, so the bulb itself is a generic Osram. This is an XBO bulb. Look at it. It's got two flathead screws that pull out, and then you've got a couple Torx, and it just pops out. But here, in fact, I can remove this guy because that's just a tool to help you put it in and out of the microscope. So this is the bulb, and notice it's got a little USB over here. That USB keeps track of the hours for this microscope. So at 500 hours, this bulb is no longer good. And this bulb, with the whole entire carrier, if you have a return carrier to send back as a core, it's between $1,600 and $2,500, depending on your account and stuff like that. And this bulb right here, just the part, it costs $500, $600. So that's the markup for them putting it in here, connecting a little USB right here.
How much would this bulb be if you were just buying that normal, average, everyday bulb to put in a ceiling or some shit?
Oh,
like something with the similar specifications, approximately.
A couple $100. It's a projector bulb, basically.
And
so it's 300 watts. Yep.
The markup on the medical stuff is insane.
It is insane. But here's the crazy part about it. So the reason they say they can get away with this, look on the back of the bulb.
It says T2 and it's yellow.
Yeah, that's Kapton tape. The same stuff you use for electronics.
That's the stuff that I need to put on my microphone because this microphone keeps woggling back and forth. That's why it's been sitting in my car.
That is the exact same tape.
This is, so it's capped, it's heat resistant tape.
So yeah, so what they say is that the reason they put the Kapton tape on the back of the bulb is in case it explodes, it can keep the glass from flying around. But where do you think all the pressure is inside that bulb?
Over here?
It's in the middle.
And the part that's facing.
So it's going to explode forward, and the glass is going to go everywhere anyway. So that's the crazy thing. So they charge $1,600 to $2,500 for this bulb reprogrammed, only because they reprogram the hours on it. That's it.
So let me guess. This is where somebody like you comes in and like takes a $5 flash chip from, MXL or something from Mouser.com and just solders it on and like changes the.
You're close. You're close. So my hospital bought a whole bunch of these bulbs, and that gave me a big sample size. So I had a whole bunch of new bulbs, and then I had some expired bulbs. So now you know what new code should be, and now you know what the old expired code should be. So I basically developed a system using something called the Bus Pirate. You ever hear of it?
Yes.
Yeah. The Bus Pirate. Cool little device. It's what, $25, $30. Comes in a pack just like that with wires. Here, you want one? You can keep one.
Thank you.
I have a bunch of them. They talk to I2C chips, which is what they use inside this guy. So
You have to say I squared C in case Paul is watching.
oh yeah,
He's gonna be
I
mad.
squared C. I always say I do C. So yeah, here's the real stinker of this whole situation. Osram says this bulb is good for 1,000 hours. So they half the amount of hours. They half it. They at
Well,
500
that's
hours.
to make sure because of medical. You don't want somebody to die because the bulb went out too soon in case it's one of those 0.00001%
Right.
bulbs that dies within 50% of its allotted time frame. Do you?
Well, since Osram, this is a rated bulb, it goes in sensitive objects. That 1,000 hours also has probably a 50% leeway on top of it.
And this is definitely not so that they can get $1,600 easily to get a new
Yeah,
bulb.
I know.
So the hospital would be paying $1,600 to $2,500 with somebody else. What do they pay through you?
So what I did is I recorded all this code, and byte for byte, I found out what bytes we needed to change, and using the bus pirate, I dumped all those other bulbs, and I created basically a master code where it's a script. They run it, and it reprograms the bulb if they follow my instructions. It was one of my first videos I ever did, and now I'm at, I don't know, like 600 videos, maybe a little more.
One of the things I find interesting here is a lot of people have said when you look at a company like Mercedes coming out with some sort of thing that you unlock where you pay $1,200 per year in order for your car to go faster, but you already have the hardware, you already have the radiator, whatever the cooling system that's needed for everything, you already have the motor in there, the battery that can do it. You're simply paying a monthly fee to unlock what your car can already do. And one of the things they've said is this is going to create a ridiculous market for people to hack everything. And it's just funny how this is moving across every industry. When it happens with your MacBook or your cell phone, whatever, most people don't care no matter what the videos that I do. When it happens to your car, they're like, wait a second,
Right.
that's kind of weird. I'm not used to that shit.
Because now it affects them.
Yeah, and then when it's like a light bulb in a hospital, like
Yep.
why the fuck do you need a bus pirate
Yep.
to repair a bulb that is being used by a hospital so that they don't have to pay $2,500 to $1,600 for a new one? Like this is where it starts to get more and more dystopian. This entire idea
Yep.
that you're not going to own any of your own shit, it's going to be controlled by somebody else. It just continues to go from industry to industry to industry in the most fucked up way possible.
You know, it's even more fucked up out of everything that we just talked about. The most fucked up thing is what happens the day they decide
Never
to
heard
quit.
this man curse until he showed up here.
Yeah,
but
I know.
I watch his channel. He's
Yeah.
usually very. I feel like a horrible.
I keep it down low. But everybody that knows me, like in the field, like I'm a high-strung individual, probably like you are. And the thing is like sometimes you see some stuff that's so messed up, you're like, what the heck is going on here? Imagine the day they quit selling these bulbs. Now, if you're a doctor, you know there's veterinary and stuff like that where they can afford like a $100,000 microscope. So a $20,000 or $30,000 microscope that's an old one. I mean, microscopes don't really go bad, right?
Yeah.
There's not too much that can go bad. So if you bought a $30,000 neural microscope to use on animals, because that's usually what they do, buy old used medical equipment, but they quit selling the bulb, now you have a paperweight, right? Because it's useless without the light.
Pretty much.
I mean, you might be able to refit it, but neural microscopes are pretty crazy. So basically, when we are done with medical equipment, what do you guys think it goes? They put it on container ships and it goes over to like Africa, South America, all over the world. Islands out in the Pacific. So when I started doing my YouTube channel, I got people from almost every country I could think of writing me and telling me like, hey, they're running into a similar situation, or I've been sent photos of like equipment graveyards where there's just medical equipment stacked up out in the weather because they don't have the ability to fix it, either because they can't get the parts or because the manufacturer quit selling the parts, you know, and it's really disgusting. It is.
Connect that via USB to reset the time for the light bulb to work.
So it's,
That's
so this is basically a bus pirate. This is the older Pentero microscope, and this is the bus pirate that I have for Kenevo microscopes, which are a newer, more expensive microscope. And you can see that this card right here, I got contacts. You just overlay it on top of your bulb, press it down, hit go, it runs the script, you clear, now you're done, right? So, and those bulbs are only $200 or $300, and yet they sell them for like $1,800. So, I mean,
See, there's a good amount of margin to say make a living for yourself and provide a living wage for
Yeah.
employees while simultaneously saving the hospital thousands of dollars that they otherwise would have thrown away.
and it's really a matter of planned obsolescence because they control when you stop using that device.
Literally,
yeah.
USB plug.
Yeah.
This is not even the kind of thing on my channel. Like, you know, if you had made this cable a little longer, the device would have lasted a few more years.
Right.
Hey, it's not that hard to make this part a little bit more liquid resistant. Like, we can argue about the design. That's different from literally having you plug it in to set the point at which it no longer works.
Right. So here's the crazier thing. We all have electronics where you can reset the hours. Yeah, I mean, these microscopes have a touch screen. Why don't they have a thing where you can input a service code or something and reset the hours for your bulb on the screen? Like, because the microscope recognizes when you put a new bulb in. It says detected new bulb.
So one of the things that people have said that there's probably a reason that Apple or other companies do things the way they do them. And I would love to meet with the person that actually comes up with the reason. All we wind up hearing in a legislative hearing is, magtrometer exploding and other absolute horseshit. But like, I never get to speak to somebody and actually just have an honest sit-down conversation and go, bro, what's the actual reason for this? Even if I wind up saying I disagree, I think it's wrong, I'd love to know what it is. In your industry, do you ever get to have that sit-down and figure out what the actual reason is for this? Or are you just sitting across from somebody that goes, this is important to protect the safety and the safety of our patients and their health and blah, blah, blah. Do you ever get to speak to somebody who gives you an actual reason as to why everything is the way it is?
I mean, maybe justly so, never, but... So I have been threatened to be sued a couple times before. So one of them, I did a video. I was angry, and I was in my car, and these devices that are used in heart surgery, by the way, they were contaminated. And the company comes in and does a PM, a preventive maintenance. Well, they came through, and they did 10 of these devices by lunchtime. Mind you, they came in at 9:30. So by lunchtime, they did 10 of them. Each PM cost me $1,200. And so by lunchtime, they're packing their shit and they're leaving. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And so anyway, the next morning, I went to put these items back on the cart to take them back to the heart surgery rooms. And I looked at them, and the cold air induction fans, they have a grate over them and they're dirty. I was like, oh no. You know that sinking feeling when you know your day just got ruined? And so I was like, oh, this is crazy. So I looked at the next little unit. I was like, oh, it's contaminated too. I was like, okay, let's go to the big ones. And I opened up the side panel on the big one. I looked inside, and there was slime in the hoses, slime. It's a heater cooler, so it has fluid that comes and goes to blankets that are on the patient because you want to regulate their temperature. Things like your body temperature regulates how much you bleed. So if they chill your body to hypothermia, let's say they're doing an operation on your arm or something, they can chill your body. And the blood, it gets squished away from your arm so you don't bleed as much. So there's a lot of reasons for doing it. But anyway, I had a thing on my desk that says if these are contaminated, they must be removed from service. And that's something called the RASMUS, which is from the FDA. It's a notice from the FDA that says if it's contaminated, they must be removed from service. And when you know it, the company that came out and the OEM came out, serviced all these items. They were all contaminated. They all had slime in them. And they put their PM sticker around the front that said they're good to go. And I had to argue with my manager. And I've got that on video because that's how crazy it was. That video will never be released. But I had to argue with my manager, please let me and my team sterile all these items because it was coming up on a weekend. You don't go into a weekend not having all your heart surgery rooms because somebody's going to die. So I was fighting with my managers. Please, just let my team finish. We were bleaching all the hoses with little brushes and stuff. I mean, if something's contaminated, you have to clean every single piece with bleach. I mean, how else are you going to clean it? And my manager on video, he's sitting there and he's arguing that we're not in the sanitation business. And if the company says that the PM's good, then the PM's good and I need to take him back to the OR. And I'm begging him, like on video, to please let me just finish my work. So, I mean, this is some of the crazy stuff, and that's an OEM PM. But
when you say OEM PM?
Yeah. It's original equipment manufacturer. So there's different levels
what is PM? Parts?
Preventive maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the more industrial world, you're going to hear things like PM, you're going to hear OEM, original equipment manufacturer, and then you're going to hear things like ISO, which Phoebe Medical, I'm in ISO, which is an independent service organization. And then I just heard one the other day, which is HO something, which is hospital something. They separated hospitals from ISOs because that way they can skirt around right to repair. Because they're like, yeah, we'll let the hospital repair their equipment, but you ISOs, you can't do it. But they're the same as me. They're the same as me. They're not, in the official capacity of the
So
manufacturer.
the safety of the patient is literally they don't give us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. It's been a journey. I've been a Biomed for 20 years. So you have a lot of viewers that love fixing things. Did you know right now we as a country are facing a crisis for something called a Biomed or a BMET, biomechanical equipment technician? And you can research it up. We have a huge shortage for BMETs in this country. Like,
Is that because getting into is it because getting into the industry is difficult because it's hard to actually do your job? Like, I mean, for the industry that I'm in, I mean, it's very difficult to convince people this is what you should do for a living. I don't know if it's going to exist in 2 years because I can't buy any parts anymore.
Right.
Like, what is it that's causing that in this industry?
for me, it's a lot of people don't know that we exist. Almost every person I've talked to that's a biomed, they got into it on accident. Like, one guy was a patient in a hospital, and a guy came in to fix his patient monitor. He's like, "What is that? What are you doing? Who are you?" And that's how he found out about the job, and he was an old man. I ended up teaching him later on, but that's how he got into it. One guy I talked to, his mom was a nurse, and she told him, like, "Here, you like fixing things, go into it." But it's probably one of the coolest jobs in the world. And would you know that there's no license for me to do my job?
I have
None.
about 50 questions for you, but
Yeah, yeah.
before I get to those,
No,
I'm
it's
going
all
to take
good.
my microphone back to you because it keeps falling off.
Okay.
One moment.
So there's no licensure for biomeds. You have to go to school, and sometimes going to school means you go and you work for a manufacturer, and the manufacturer trains you, and they keep your training records and whatnot. But it's the most easy career to get into. Some people don't even go to school to become biomeds, and every single state, every single city needs biomeds. So if you like fixing stuff and you like working around, let's say, lasers, giant microscopes the size of Volkswagens, robots, like medical robots, those are pretty cool. I mean, everything you can think of, pneumatics, hydraulics, electronics, we do it.
Quality medical tape.
I love that.
Yeah.
See, that's expensive Captom tape. You better not be wasting it. I mean, according to these guys. So,
Yes, I paid $2.50 for this roll, and I will get my use out of it.
oh my gosh, I can't believe some of the scandals that we have seen. So just last week, or the week before, last week, we had a medical right to repair summit over in Minneapolis, and a lot of companies sent people there, and we basically came up with a plan. Kevin, you know Kevin from
Kevin O'Reilly.
yeah.
He's the man.
Yep. So
People like him and Nathan Proctor allow me to look good and get credit for things
Man.
that they did. I always feel guilty.
those guys are fighting the good fight for
Yes,
sure.
they are, and they're winning in many areas.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that people should know is that there's a lot of stuff happening for right to repair around the country and around the world. Like this last year, I went around giving speeches at events across the nation, and I was talking about right to repair, and I basically drew up a timeline of what has happened for pro-consumer and anti-consumer
You
over the last.
testified for Congress recently, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
How'd that go?
So I learned a lot of stuff, man.
I never got to do anything federally. Okay, I got to do some FTC hearing, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
It was interesting. It was a learning experience. So some of the stuff that I learned is that your congressmen only work 4 days a week. Yeah, there is no 5-day week for them. The fourth day, which is the day that we showed up, they were gone. So all that we had was an audience of students, basically, because that's their team. They have all the interns and stuff.
So you were showing up for their
Interns. Yeah, but the interns. Here's the other crazy
That
thing.
demonstrates your how dedicated they were to hearing you out.
Oh yeah.
It was
Well,
like when Andrew Yang's campaign had like some intern staffer because to discuss, right? Like they said, okay, we may be interested in talking about right to repair, and then I get somebody in this. It's like you told the guy that gets you orange juice to like listen to us talk for 20 minutes, didn't you?
Yes.
It's like they didn't want to be there at all.
So that is definitely one of the things that I found out is that they don't work that much. And when they are there, normally you get a staffer. And so here's the interesting thing. The staffers are very powerful people because they generally tell the congressmen how to vote. Like, you should do this because of this or this because of that. and they're basically telling them how to do their job. And I learned that too.
I mean,
was like,
somebody has to be the brain of it.
yeah, because it's
I mean,
definitely not the
person who-
congressman.
the person who wins is the person who says the things that people want to hear and wins the popularity contest. You have to
Yep.
say what people want to hear and win the popularity contest as to whatever it is your particular district wants to hear. Like,
good-
what rhetoric do they want to hear? Then there's the actual, oh shit, how do I run government? You need people that actually have a brain to do that.
So the staffers are really smart, by the way. I mean, they're smart. So I'm not knocking staffers by any means, guys, but they are some smart people, and just some of them, I don't know. We always hear these things about like the Southern blue bloods and stuff. You know, like you get a taste of that when you go to Washington. You're like, hey, wait a minute. There's a whole bunch of rich, entitled kids around here, but that's also true. But fortunately, they are very smart people nonetheless. And a lot of them, almost all of them, were really sympathetic towards our cause. That was never really the stop.
I mean, the main argument against right to repair, like the best one, the one that I would think that would be the most honest, is when they would just say, we have the right to be an asshole. It's not about safety, it's not about security, it's not about intellectual, it's about none of these things. It's just, I have the right to be an asshole. In America, you have freedom, and part of that freedom is if I want to make your life harder, or make a shitty product, or buy a company that makes a good product, and then remove all the repairability and limit you in many ways, I have the freedom to be an asshole. And like that's not a, while I would say it's an intellectually and philosophically consistent argument, it's not a particularly popular one.
No, it's not. And you know, in a day and age when we're talking about for the better needs of society, and then like somebody comes out of left field, you know, it's kind of like the guy that jacked up the price on insulin. You know, it's like, wait a minute, you've been selling it for years at this price, and all of a sudden you come in and you sell
I
it.
read on Twitter that they're selling it for free now.
Yeah. Twitter. Oh my gosh, what a circus that's becoming. Yeah, for better or for worse. I mean, but you know, I've always been more for, you know, knowledge is power, and ever since, like, I watched your videos way back when I was in South Carolina, right after I got out of the military, back when you had only a couple hundred.
You sent me the
subscribers.
microphone when I had 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I remember that little mic setup.
Yeah. It was. I know it was a long time ago, but here's the thing: is I was spending every single one of my lunches learning about electronics and my, you know, finding a side hustle, you know, because I fix stuff on the side all the time. Like right now in my garage, I got like, you know, economy, commercial sized meat slicers and stuff that I fix on the side, and I sell them. You know,
That's awesome.
But it's a need because first off, where are they going to go? If somebody else can't fix them, they're going to go in the trash, right? That's not the society that we should be living in, not in my mind. So if something's fixable, which is why I came, you know, 2.5 hours out here to talk to you, is because, you know, I love it when something starts up that's going to change things. And I know this is going to change things.
It's fun to get people excited when they see that either A, something works again, or B, well, crap, it doesn't, but it was a hell of a lot of fun trying.
Of course. Just tearing stuff apart. Most people just want to tear stuff apart.
Yeah. Like, they just want to have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, and if I know if I can get people to have that kind of fun or excitement hands-on where they get some shit of theirs to work again, that they'll be, at some point, hooked.
You are in a perfect location, not only for the good music that is constantly playing,
Yes.
but also because you're right next to a college. And if we can inspire people from the college, I mean, this is even going to help my career field. Because if people learn that they can actually fix things and they can change things, then they'll get into STEM type of career fields like mine, you know, and that helps me. So,
Can you give the audience a little bit of an idea of where your career started in this and how it's got to the point where you are now, where you're using a bus pirate to reprogram
oh
that
man,
ID?
yeah.
Like,
So that's quite the journey. So I have been a biomed for almost exactly 20 years now. I got started in the military, and so I had a girlfriend that was cheating on me, and
that's how every good story starts.
I know. It's a true story, though, guys. So I had a girlfriend that was cheating on me, and I was, at the time, fixing industrial fax machines, photocopiers, industrial printers, you know, the big ones that print, like, pamphlets and stuff. So I was traveling all around Michigan fixing that stuff, and I was driving to work one day, and I noticed my girlfriend's car was in her ex-boyfriend's parking spot. It's like, what the hell? So I was just done. You know, you can sense when your life needs to make a change, right? So I went and I talked to the recruiter, and he sent me off to take the ASVAB test, which is something you have to take if you want to join the military. And he called me up and says, "Hey, come on over. Let's pick out your job." So I sat down with him, and I said, "I like fixing things, and here's the thing: I want to be around the ladies, all right? So I want to be around the girls. And he says, I got something for you. I said, what you got, man? He says, medical and medical repair. I was like, sweet, sign me up. And I will admit, it's probably one of the most fun and challenging things I've ever done in my life, because that's when the war kicked off back in 2003. And so anyway, I was a junior level biomed for many years, which means I do all the jobs nobody wants to do. And then I had a spontaneous pneumothorax, which is when your lung spontaneously pops. And my career was done. And so I went to South Carolina, and I thought I knew my job, because the military trains us quite well. And then I got on the civilian side, and I was like, holy cow, I don't know nothing. It was just crazy. So I had some really good mentors. You know, all technical career fields are about mentorship. And so I had some really good mentors, some of whom are no longer with us today. But some of the stuff they taught me, I still teach people every day on YouTube and stuff, right? That's what we do, is we share knowledge. So I started hitting roadblocks with companies. There's been a huge trend in medical, whereas people used to actually fix things. But then we start shipping things out to OEMs, and they start doing something called flat rate repairs. So let's say only the power button is broke on the front of my machine. I ship it out to a manufacturer, and he wants to charge me $3,500 for just that, just a power button, because it's a flat rate repair. Anything that's wrong with it, they'll fix for $3,500. But that's becoming a more of a trend in medical, is flat rate repairs. They're everywhere. And so what it's doing is it's making stupider technicians, which is their goal, because you know less about the device, right? And because you know less about the device, you're more inclined to ship it out. Since you're more inclined to ship it out, they can set the price. And they can also say when you stop using it, because if you can't fix it,
you're screwed.
That's it. So what some of the things I've learned over the years is that a lot of hospitals, a lot of their equipment is loaned or leased, or they're on payments. And the cost of everything has gone up exponentially. So one of the challenges I've seen is when my hospital had a PO, purchase order, for $12,000 some worth of light bulbs. I was like, what the hell is that? It was only like 4 bulbs. I was like, you're spending $12,000 some for 4 bulbs? And I had to dig into it, because there's no reason that you spend that kind of money on a stupid xenon bulb. So that's when I started doing research on I²C and reading about how these chips work, which is why I learned about reprogramming them and all this other stuff. It's been quite the journey. So a lot of the things that we think about when it comes to like rate to repair, we think about in first world nation. You know, oh, why don't the manufacturer just come over and fix it? Most of the world doesn't have that luxury, right?
Yeah, the manufacturer may not have a place in their particular country.
They definitely almost don't. Almost guaranteed not. So one of the things that I've learned in doing YouTube is that this stuff goes all around the world. And people have been writing me all the time about how do I do this, or hey, can I find a manual on that, whatever. You know, Kyle from iFixit, he started that library of medical equipment manuals and stuff. That was a pretty big help. So it's been a journey, and there's a lot of hands in the pie to kind of help us push this down the road. But I'm just trying to do my thing, you know, and help people understand that, you know, we can fix this stuff. And sometimes I just do teardowns live. I don't even put it back together, because why? But I will tell you about what each component does, what each board should do, and you know how the motor drivers and stuff work. I do all sorts of stuff like that, because I think just the theory, if you understand the theory of this device, you might be able to apply it to all these devices. So, you know, that's really my goal, is just to spread as much as I can. And your videos were some of them that actually started teaching me a long time ago. Yeah. So when I was at the...
How much flux is inside this medical equipment in the average hospital?
I flux the shit out of it. No. So when it comes to flux, you do flux the hell out of some things. But no, a lot of the stuff we do is obviously similar to your boards. They're all surface mount right now, and it's all that lead free. It gets to be kind of a pain. But we deal with a lot of the same problems that you have. Is, you know, you've got heat cycles. A lot of things are heat cycling. So you have intermittent failures, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And a lot of that is fixable. And some of the stuff is, like on some of your boards here, one of the areas where most medical devices fix or break is going to be the spot where the user interfaces with it, the buttons, or the port where they plug stuff in. And that is all fixable in my mind. If you have like a DC input jack and you can't fix that, I don't think you should be a Biomed. I mean, because your motivation should tell you that, hey, we might be able to do something with this, right? So Biomeds, we're just here to do two things, really. We're to decrease downtime, because if I can fix it right now and get you back up and going, we can help more people, and decrease costs. So that's it. You can also justify like patient safety, but I mean, that's everybody's goal. But decrease downtime and costs.
One of the things that a lot of people have said is, well, if there's an even 0.0001% chance of it being less safe than a new one, then it's not worth doing. But the flip side of that is, well, if there's a surgery that's going to cost like $800,000 instead of $60,000 because you have added all these additional fucking layers of this must be done 110% perfectly in every single way. Don't you think that's going to, at some point, lead to somebody not getting a procedure that they may have otherwise been able to get?
Guaranteed.
There has to be a balance there, and this pretending that the only way to do everything is 100% new all the time, scrap everything, even if it has the tiniest problem. It's the pendulum swinging too far in the other direction.
Well, you've seen that FDA report from 2018?
Yeah, it said they were saying that not only most of the issues were not caused by people repairing it was caused by remanufacturing, and remanufacturing is often done by the OEM, not people like you. It's done by the OEM, the person that was probably telling you don't care about cleaning the slime off of this before using it again. The people the independent repairers were necessary to the functioning of a proper healthcare system, and that wasn't me saying this. This wasn't right to repair propaganda. This is the FDA.
Yeah.
Now, some people may say they agree or disagree with the FDA on a number of things, but typically when people criticize the FDA, it's for being too cautious, not like, you're too cautious. Why is it that this drug took 10 years to approve? Why is it that this thing, that wasn't put through even though they filed was it a PDUFA? I forget exactly what it is that they file for an expedited drug trial. I don't know. Why is it that it's taking so long? So if they're willing to say, people like you fixing things are okay, then there's probably something to it.
The FDA really doesn't want anything to do with regulating medical equipment repair. They want little to nothing to do with it, and they've pretty much proven that because we have recently gone after some sort of ruling about cybersecurity, which that's becoming a serious problem with medical equipment, and they didn't even want to touch it. So the FDA is a tricky thing, but as we've found out, there's many other avenues. It's not just the FDA or just going through Congress. There's also the Copyright Office. The Copyright Office recently said, and this actually affects everybody really, if you have software locks that prevent you from fixing your device, you can now legally hack that software to get past that lock to fix your own device.
Section 1201 is that the DMCA is such a big turnoff. And anytime I hear somebody from one of the lobbyists from the industry say that this is big government getting in the way, this is too much legislation, and blah blah blah. It's like, I agree. How about this? I'll walk out the door. I'm going to rip all this up right now. How about we just rip up Section 1201 of the DMCA too? And like, no.
Yeah, right.
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
So one of the things that they John Deere responded back to the FDA, or was it the FDA? Or was it the Copyright Office? Anyway, their response back was that technically farmers don't own their tractors because you can't physically own the software, right? So you have a license to use that device for its expected life expectancy. And that's wild, that you don't technically own it, because that's a slippery slope. I mean, think about it. How many devices run on software? Your coffee pot. You don't own your coffee pot.
Yeah, one of the most recent grantees is, there's a company that starts with a K that makes the coffee pots. It's on the top of my head. I should really know this.
It's not Keurig, right?
Keurig. Yeah, so
Are you serious?
Yeah, she came up with a hack to get around the DRM for the Keurig shit.
Oh, cool.
Like some green tape or green something. I forget exactly. A green wire hack for it. And she's one of the latest grantees that we're forming a nonprofit for. But yeah, Keurig had DRM in there.
That's one of the things that was one of my examples in my speech on right to repair, is because what used to be a simple system that worked perfectly fine, now they have the Keurig 2.0, and it has DMCA, and if you use unauthorized product, which a lot of people use their own coffee grinds and stuff, and their own basket, which is you put your grounds in, you put it in, but it doesn't have the barcode on the top, right? So it gives you an error code.
Like the idea that you need to hacking your MacBook or your iPhone to fix it, whatever. Hacking your car, a little weird. Hacking medical equipment so the light bulb turns on, dystopian. Hacking the DRM in your coffee maker.
Yep.
Like, brah. I mean, that's
where we're at.
Like that's the thing that I've noticed. Like, I mean, I started this channel just going over the repair industry and my thoughts on like just fixing MacBooks for consumers. And as this channel grows and as I see more and more stuff, this is everywhere. Yeah. And it makes me wonder: is it even too late to actually start turning the clock back on some of this crazy shit?
I think right now there's a lot of companies that are a little scared because a lot of their profit margin comes from their service department, right? And right now there are options, and there's becoming more options for us as time goes on. So as right to repair presses forward and more states introduce legislation, I mean, you got to get nervous when 30-40% of your baseline comes from service, right? I mean, if anything, you have to change with the times. So I don't know the solution for it, but I do know that like I would rather have a factory trained person in my hospital, because let's say you were trained on a device and the doctor's calling, they're in the middle of a surgery. I can send you up there to go and take care of it, and we can document what happened. If a manufacturer comes in, it's going to be in a day or two. By then, the documentation's gone. We have no real reason why it happened, as people pointing fingers at each other, which I am very proactive when it comes to medical repair. Like my teams, we do sweeps and we examine. If I see like cords that are messed up or if I see something cracked or something, like they take care of it on the spot. We don't wait for somebody to put in a work order, because by then it's too late, right? It's already not safe. So I was a very proactive technician and team leader, and that's one of the things. One of your videos a long time ago, you talked about rules of repair. I don't know if you remember, it was a while ago. So one of my first videos I ever did was the rules of repair. And coming up in April, there's going to be a huge convention over here in Houston. And I'm going to be speaking on that, on the rules of repair.
What's the convention?
It's called MD Expo. And it's basically biomeds like me. They fly in from all around the country. It's really interesting. If you want to go, you want to see what it's like to do medical repair. All these guys, specialists in like x-ray and surgical, all these guys will show up, and we talk about the new regulations, where we're going as an industry, training. There's all sorts of stuff, career building. So yeah, my company, Phobie Medical, they'll be there with a booth and stuff. But I'm going to be speaking at that event, and I'm talking about the rules of repair, and some of the things that I talk about are things that you've covered on your channel.
No way. I'm curious what these things are, because I forget it from making that video.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and a lot of it is old adages, things that old crusty technicians say, like if you don't have time to do it once, you'll have plenty of time to do it a second time.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a reason for that, and one of the things that I tell all my techs all the time is if it happens to one, it's happening to others. Like, let's say a fastener's coming loose on this table, and I've got a fleet of these tables. It's like, why don't you do a sample? Go check another 5 tables and see if that same fastener's coming loose. Or let's say that we got some cables that are being stretched, irregularly. Go check the rest of the fleet and make sure it's not happening to the rest. So, yeah.
I feel attacked.
So that is a proactive approach to repairing things. So once you get over the hump of a proactive, because it takes more work. If you're out there searching, finding things, eventually the amount of work orders you get goes down. And now you're over the hump, and now you're on a plateau, and now you're a proactive repair program. So I teach people all about that kind of stuff, because I've done it before at like medical universities and stuff, and it was beautiful. You got a team that's willing to see your vision and do it and carry it out. It's a beautiful thing, man. So, but yeah, this convention's coming up in April, and I'll be speaking at it, and I'm talking about the rules of repair. And I have one video out a long time ago where I talk about it, but I've changed a couple things on it because I've learned some new things over the years. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff that's going on. But yeah, you guys.
That's awesome.
Learn about biomeds. We need them. There's so many. There's jobs in every single city, every single hospital across the country. I bet. I bet my whole paycheck right now.
When you say jobs available, do you mean, as in they actually have job ads out, or do you mean they have a pile of stuff that they need to work again and they just have no idea how to find somebody to make it work again, kind of thing? How formal is it?
The answer is yes to everything. So almost every single hospital I've ever worked at, and I've worked at some huge facilities, like 1,500 beds, there's always like a vacant floor that people don't know exists. And they'll have like all sorts of stuff down that floor, like old beds. They will have, microscopes. They'll have, surgical equipment, all the stuff just kind of crammed down there because they either don't know how to fix it, which is usually part of the case. That's why I'm very pro repair and teaching people, is because I want people to be a better biomed.
Sounds like New York.
Yeah. I like it. Somebody's getting mugged right outside.
I feel homesick.
No, it's where I live in Katy, Texas, is way quieter than this.
Yeah.
So, but
I definitely chose the weirdest part of Texas to leave New York.
No, this is a cool area though. You're right next to a college. I think you'll have a greater effect on the future because of the potential clientele. I think so. I mean, people here are smarter. I've worked in some places where the overall populace was not as smart, and here in Houston and Dallas and San Antonio, the people that I work with, there's some real smart dudes out there. And very few lazy people.
So when it comes to having a job at a hospital, what is the relationship that you have with these equipment manufacturers like? Is it as antagonistic as mine with Apple? If I want to buy a chip, I can't. If I get a schematic and it literally says in the schematic, do not share this with people like me. What is the relationship that you have to hardware manufacturers to the point? I mean, it has to be a little less antagonistic to be at a point where a hospital is willing to have a job ad for somebody like you to work there.
Well, you have to remember, there are hundreds of different types of equipment in a hospital. So while like half of them you might not be able to touch, or you shouldn't, the other half is nose to the grindstone all day.
I mean, if there's a specific piece of robo-surgery equipment and you have to take a 1-year certification course to figure out how to properly calibrate that, I completely understand not having a generalist walk in with his soldering station and go YOLO. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But then there's the DC jack on something, or a bulb, and it's like, no. So what in general is your relationship like with these hardware manufacturers?
It really does depend, because since over the 20 years that I've been at Biomed, there were all these medical companies, and now if anybody's paid attention to the news in the last 5 years, they're getting bought up. You got like GE Medical, you've got like Hillrom. There's major medical companies that are buying up the smaller ones. And when they buy them up, a device you might have been able to fix before now is no longer either supported, or now you can no longer buy parts. There's small ventilators and stuff we used to be able to get parts for, and because that company sold to somebody else, now we can't get parts for them. It's crazy. But that's corporate America, So normally some companies like GE, they'll send you a training for anything. They have a beautiful training campus up in Milwaukee. They'll train you on anything. And then they have a library. Like, you can go through all their user manuals, all their service manuals, whatever you want. There's other companies that, I had one company, I talked to them on the phone, and they normally would sell a part to a hospital. Mm-hmm. But they said, what hospital are you part of? And I said, no, I'm an independent service organization. She hung up the phone on me. She hung up the phone.
That sounds like Apple, right?
So, yeah, as soon as she found out that I am technically competition, she hung up the phone. Oh, and wow. That's where we're at. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that some of us have to deal with. And, I get horror stories from people all the time. There's some companies that are miserable to work with, because you're at their leisure. You're at their leisure for when they're going to come service you, if they're even going to support your equipment anymore. So they try and force you to buy a contract, and it's just wild.
One of the things I'm curious about, I have no problem with actual innovation, but how much of the increase in the market cap of many of these businesses is real innovation, them actually doing things that benefit society, and how much of it is we made it $1,800 to replace a light bulb? Like, I'd be very curious if there was any sort of way to actually take that and distill it down into data or a pie chart. I'm very curious how much
That's tough. That's going to be real tough.
How much would you roll off of these companies in market cap if they just, again, a light bulb was easier to replace?
You know,
I'm very curious.
if anything, what you're doing is you're removing some of their ability to limit your use of that product, which they're going to make more money on the service contracts to the new microscopes, right? Because that one there, you know, what a lot of hospitals do is they'll take old equipment off contract, and then it'll be something called time and material. So that means you're going to pay for parts and travel, labor, whatever, right? But that's a good risk, because if it breaks down once every 2 years, well, hell, I just saved $30,000 for not having it under contract for 1 year, you know? So I've seen some wild stuff. I've seen, we have different levels of contracts in medical. So we have something called full service, which means they cover everything, but then you don't get to govern the response time. So they might have a 24-hour response time. It might be 48 hours, whatever, right? We have something called the first look contract. So let's say I send you to go get trained on a device, an MRI. I worked with this one dude. He was such a piece of trash. He showed up at 9 or 10 a.m. every single day because he was trained on the hospital's MRI. But the amount that they saved in their contract between a first look and a full service contract, they saved $200,000 difference just for him being on the payroll. So literally, he could show up and do absolutely nothing all day, and they were actually making money versus, you know, having a full service contract. How wild is that? We call those gravy jobs.
Wait, so what was his job again? What did he do?
He fixed MRIs.
So he fixed MRI machines. And
Yeah. And he did some X-ray, but at a small hospital, you only have a couple X-rays.
So there's a full service contract, and what was he?
So you have full service, and then you have first look. And we were able
What
to
does
get
first look mean for those who don't know?
So if that MRI had a problem, he would be responsible for going there, pulling the error logs and whatnot, maybe trying to solve it. And if anything, those guys with those gravy jobs, what they'll do is they'll just call the manufacturer. They'll be like, yeah, I can't figure it out. Send somebody out.
And how is that different from a full service?
That's the crazy thing. Because you have to spend an MRI in order to send a tech out to get trained. It could be $25,000, could be $80,000, depending on. So the hospital would have to fork over $80K to have that guy go to training. And then there's the risk. Is he going to stay with us? Is he going to leave? You know, so sometimes you have like 10-year commitments. It's very complex. But anyway, some people, their entire paycheck is just for them being on payroll. That way there you get a reduction in the cost of your contract. It's wild.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's so many things like that I learned over the years.
That's a lot of scum.
Yeah. And imagine, there's a lot of floaters that happen because of stuff like that. Because they know that, you know, you get a reduction on your contract by them staying there. So, you know, they have to do little to nothing. And what are you going to do? You're going to fire them? You're not going to fire them. So, yeah, that happens. It's crazy.
There's a lot of scum in every industry.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, a lot of the dudes that are in, and females, a lot of the ladies that are in my career field, they're crazy smart. Way smarter than me. I'm just a guy that gets on camera. You know, there's some crazy smart people that do my job. But, you know, I just do my thing because they're not willing to turn on a camera and talk. So, you know, somebody's got to do it, right?
Somebody has to advocate for your particular industry to
Right.
continue to exist and advocate for the needs of it and everything else.
Right.
And even if you're not necessarily the 100% best technician at it, you can most certainly explain the issues. You can certainly explain the obstacles. And as long as you can explain these things to people and why it is that they present a problem, there's a better chance of things getting better than if nobody talks at all.
That's right. It's all about awareness. And the same thing with, you know, like right to repair. You're like, why do you always talk about it? Because I'm not going to let it go. As soon as you let it go, they win. So as long as we continue the conversation, keep putting out little content, every time I see something that like a manufacturer doesn't want me to do, I'm definitely going to do it. It's the thorn in the side and constantly poking the bear because it's not going anywhere. I mean, other countries like France and Australia, hell, the whole European Union, they're actually working towards right to repair in their own right, you know. So I always say, like, it's only going to take one straw to break the camel's back, right? Because think about if Australia passes right to repair, the service manuals are going to end up on the black market, right?
Yeah, there's no such thing. People have said, you know, what's the point of trying to get it passed in Massachusetts or this state? This is the internet, man. Like, there's no way in hell that a schematic is going to get published in Massachusetts that's not readable in Antarctica.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, and the same thing with parts. If I know that somebody in Idaho can get a certain type of part, well, somebody's going to set up a shop overnight in Idaho to sell those parts. They're going to be on eBay, and I'll be the guy buying them.
Let's see if anybody has any questions for you.
Sure.
Let's see, input from the audience. What do we have here? Any smart questions? Smart questions. Paul is funny. Okay. Lewis takes joy in tossing grenades at me. Not true, Carrie.
You have a lot of interactions on
I
your
give
live
joy
streams.
from toss. Yeah, I did this one to the live channel because I didn't know if this would actually work.
No, that's cool because people always do like interacting, and one of my goals is to start doing live streams with industry experts.
Smart questions. Chat has left the chat. Come on.
So yeah, we work with some of the coolest stuff that you can imagine, man. I work with lasers that can burn holes from across the room. All sorts of stuff.
What is the point of that? What is the point of a laser that burns a hole from across the room besides being able to hurt your enemies?
Well, no, it's for surgical. So you have to remember that lasers, since it's light, however you focus it, that's going to be the area that's affected. And the cool thing about lasers is they're not always on. It's pulsed, right? Like, psst. And the pulse determines how much tissue is going to be affected and the size of the burn. You can collimate the beam to whatever you want. So it's very useful. And depending on the wavelength of laser, you can go on fiber optics. So I can go into my lung and burn polyps through the nose, down into the esophagus. You can burn polyps with a fiber optic.
Where do you buy this thing? I want one.
I do work with some cool stuff,
man.
man. I work with some cool stuff. And this is the journey. Is I started the Better Biomed YouTube channel because in order to teach people the content, I had to learn it.
And wanted to know, how would someone get started in this industry?
Wow. Well, I got started in the military. So, but I would say that there are many schools. One of them is right here around the corner. It's the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology. It's an online college. But at the end of your degree, you have to be part of a company.
So what were you doing in the military? Because Paul was in the Marine Corps. He's a Marine, and he learned a lot. He went through an entire 6-month or 1-year-long program on how to do radio repair and how to fix a lot of their stuff. And surprisingly, a lot of the stuff that you need to know to troubleshoot 1940s radios actually did apply to 2020s MacBooks. So what is it that you were doing in the military, and how did it apply to fixing medical gear?
No, I actually joined the military as a biomed. So they had a 10 or 11 month long school. And if you can imagine, the government school is going to be better than everybody else's because they have access to the latest and greatest technology, an open checkbook. And over here in Fort Sam Houston, which is in San Antonio, they have a beautiful school. They built a brand new one. I wish I could go and see it sometime. But I trained up north of Dallas, and my school is 10.5 months long, and it's very structured. Today we're going to learn about sterilizers, digital circuit theory, and the thing is you learn something and then they test you on it and then you move on to the next topic. And it's when the first day I signed up for class and we sat down, they said, take a look at the people next to you because there's a good chance that 60% of them are not going to be here when you graduate. There's a 60% washout rate at the time, which means if you fail, you go to maybe you're a cook.
Sounds like when I tell my friends to start going to the gym in January 1st.
So there's a 60% washout rate. There was. They've improved the school, and now it's fantastic. But there are clinical engineering programs or biomedical equipment technology programs all across the country. And the thing is, this is a good paying job. I could go in Arkansas and be making $70,000, $80,000 a year in Arkansas. That's really good. No state licensure. I can leave here today and I can go to Oklahoma and do my job. There's no state. I can't even do that for hair cutting.
In New York City, I needed 3 licenses to run my repair shop. So you need 1 license to fix things, another license to sell things, And then apparently those two licenses don't talk to each other because then you need a third license to sell fixed things.
Wow.
So license to sell things, license to fix things, license to sell fixed things. So you need 3 licenses in order to be able to fix a fucking laptop, and you don't need a license to go into a hospital and fix life-saving equipment.
No, in fact, that's interesting that you say that because
You probably need 10 licenses for
I
this in
have
New York City.
sent contractors up to New York Bronx.
No way.
I just sent somebody to the Bronx not so long
You're
ago.
literally tugging at my heartstrings here.
Oh yeah, so that's just it. Is like there's some huge hospitals up there in New York, and they outsource. So what it is, people fly in from other states to come and fix your medical equipment.
But was the company that did the outsourcing licensed or something like that, and then they just hire an unlicensed subcontractor?
There's no licensure to do this job. So
You need a license to fix a
No.
laptop.
So it's not quite that simple, but it is. There is no licensure, but competitively, we still, like my company is ISO 13485, which is you're ISO certified for the manufacturing of medical equipment, which is pretty stringent. Like there's a lot of rules, and all the big name players for medical equipment repair, they're all ISO certified, which is more stringent than the ISO 60601, I think, is the manufacturing. So if you're GE Medical, you have to follow 60601, I think, is the one. So I'm following almost the same rules, but that's my company's wish, is to be better. So that's why they're ISO certified. It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement in Texas. It's not a requirement in Michigan or Florida or any other place. It's not a requirement. You do have to have insurance to do business with the large hospitals.
That makes sense.
You have to have like $5 million insurance in order to do, which kind of makes sense.
It does. There's like 3 or 5 live streams where something's gone on fire.
Yeah. It could happen. But I mean, believe it or not, like medical equipment is generally very safe. Very, very safe. It's almost always user error. Most of the problems that I see from day in, day out are almost always use and abuse.
Yeah,
you know.
Imagine when doing surgery with a scalpel that most of the issues are user error.
Oh my gosh. If you guys, I have stories to tell you. I have crazy stories. Things I've seen. I've seen where they pull the wrong kidney out of people. I have seen, mind you, I've worked in like 5, 6, 7 different hospitals.
When I tore my quadricep, I was told I needed surgery and I never got it, and you're reinforcing my decision to never, just not have medical procedures done.
So I specialize in surgery. I've been doing it for 17, 18 years, a long time. And nothing is more intimidating than when you go into an orthopedics surgery room and all the doctors are literally wearing like a spacesuit. And a doctor's on the table like this on an 80-year-old woman beating the hell out of like her bone with a hammer and a chisel and a hammer, like chipping away at her bone. I've walked in on that many times. Like you can hear him beating the hell out of somebody from down.
Are you
down
sure
the way.
you didn't confuse the whole you don't need a license to fix things there versus you don't need a license to be a doctor there?
I've seen such crazy things. So we use like electricity to cut tissue. People think like we use scalpels and stuff. Scalpels aren't used that often, believe it or not. They use electricity, because if I were to take a knife and cut you, you'd start bleeding all over the place, right? Well, if you use electricity, it cauterizes and it basically limits the amount of bleeding. That's the key, is limit the amount of bleeding, and also it destroys less tissue.
I don't want to get electrocuted. I don't want to get cut or electrocuted.
Yeah.
I want to be kept OEM. I don't want to ever be repaired. I want no right to repair on myself.
No.
I'm just going to be the way I am until I die.
If I would have known, man, I would have brought an ESU with me. I got one in my garage at home. Big device. You can cut like a piece of meat with it and stuff. Oh, it's fantastic.
I want nothing to do with ever being opened, or I don't want to be modified in any way, shape, or form, not software or hardware. And I'm very stingy when it comes to that stuff.
So are you fussy when it comes to like blood?
Yes. Very.
Okay. All
ridiculously.
Right. Okay. So I'm painting a graphic picture for you. I have walked in when, obviously I was a biomed in surgery during the war. It's a different situation, guys. But I walked in when they have people's eyes out. Because a lot of people don't know this, but your optic nerve is really kind of long.
Yeah.
So you can pop their eyes out, and they have to clean, let's say there's an explosion. There's glass that gets behind your eye. They have to pop your eye out
No explosion.
to clean out the tissue and everything, right?
No explosion. Just stay away from explosions.
Yeah.
Surgery is like flying an airplane. Most of the time, everyone does what they're supposed to, but when they screw things up, they go really badly.
Yeah. Fortunately, most surgical teams are like well-oiled machines. Like everybody knows their job. Everybody is experts at what they do.
Yeah, except for the person that chooses the kidney.
Yeah. Well, I found out about that after the fact, talking with one of the nurses. I was like, really? The wrong kidney. It's kind of a big thing, But
there was a woman I dated who had worked in a hospital at one point, and she said, just so you know, I would be totally okay with you getting a paternity test if we have a kid. And I'm like, no, I mean, I trust that you're not going to cheat me. And she's like, no, I really would prefer to get a paternity test if we have a kid. And I said, did you sign an NDA at the hospital you worked at? Like, is there anything you want to tell me? She says, I really want to have a paternity test done if we have a kid. I'm like, okay, I get it. So I'm guessing that there was something that went on there.
Really?
I'm guessing that that happened more than once based on the.
Oh, okay, I follow.
Yes.
Wow. So this one time I was working at a blood bank. So a blood bank, it kind of is exactly what it sounds like. Imagine refrigerators everywhere, and they got all these different types of blood in there, right? All sorts of different types of blood. So I was fixing the refrigerator in the blood bank, and somebody called. I will never answer a telephone ever again. I made that mistake once, and what happened is this guy was frantic. He's like, my wife's this blood type, I'm this blood type, my child is not that blood type. And he's like, why is my child not this blood type? And he was frantic. There was a scary situation. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Hold on, let me go find somebody. So that was the only time I've ever answered somebody else's telephone. Like if it's ringing right here, I don't hear it. Trust me. Because that dude, I would like to think that something good happened after that, but that dude was flying off. He was losing his shit. And I imagine they probably.
But he knows that's one of those cases of you're asking a question you already know the answer to.
Yeah.
And you just keep doing it in the hopes that the answer will change, but it will not.
Yeah.
It will not change.
So I mean,
why is my kid not this blood type?
Please, I have all sorts of stories
Please
like
hold,
that.
sir. That's the right answer. Please hold, sir. The hold music at my current store is actually this like sad violin music. I would have loved to have put that. I'm gonna play it right now just to see if anybody. We're gonna play this so that somebody can hear it. This is what the perfect music for that situation is right here.
Jeez.
Not though it's.
Yeah, I'll never answer the phone again.
How can I help?
Can you put me on hold so I can hear the hold music?
Yeah, sure.
It's just like
You have sad violin music
no, it's
at a
like,
repair
it's
place.
the best. It's Godelsky Volume 12, the first part. It's it's literally the I'm playing the smallest violin possible for you music. But yeah, I made that. It's to like calm people down when they're bitching. But that would have been please hold, sir.
Oh
Please
my
hold,
gosh.
sir. Yes.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some crazy things. So they use biomeds in some small hospitals as security, and I've had to tackle people before because they get violent, like physically violent.
So wait, did you have to finish that? What was the end of that situation? Okay, so the guy's like, my kid's not that blood type. Okay,
so that's one of those situations.
That's the point where you come out and say, well, sir, there's something I'd like to tell you about the dinner your wife had the other night.
You don't say anything else.
With the insurance salesman.
No, I stuttered. I know I stuttered. And
so now
I
he's
said,
going to think it's your kid.
No, well.
And now this is where the story comes around full circle because you got into this because somebody cheated on you, and then now you have become the other guy. See, it all comes around full circle.
So, because of things like Ancestry.com, I have full faith that someday I'm going to get that knock, knock, knock. Someday I'm going to get that knock because you can't hide who you are anymore. Like, if you have a daddy that you don't know about, like, trust me, you can find it. You'll find a third cousin that's in, Spain, and you can contact them and be like, hey, I'm your third cousin. Who are you related to? Yeah, they can find you now.
That's scary.
It is scary. It is absolutely scary. So, 23andMe and then Ancestry.com. And
I haven't given my DNA to any of these services, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had it through other means.
Yeah. So here in Texas, I've been fighting. I just had a baby 4 months ago. And at the hospital.
Did you?
Yeah, that's why I'm all tired. So I know I'm 42 years old and I'm still having kids. It's crazy. But at the hospital, the state of Texas wanted to take a DNA sample of my child. I said no. I denied them. And then at my first doctor visit, we highly recommend that you register your child with the state, and they want, again, a blood sample. I was like, no, stop. They bothered me multiple times.
Why does the state need a blood sample of your child?
I don't know. I understand why the military does it, because every person that goes in the military, they have a card with your blood type, because shit happens, right? But when it comes to like your child, I don't know if it's because there's a trafficking in persons problem here in Texas. I don't know. I mean, they didn't give a justification. I think that they're just creating a database, and not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I mean, I choose to have as much privacy as possible, and that's why I do YouTube.
Yes.
I mean, there's some
make
things
as much public as you want, but the stuff that's private that you don't show people should actually stay private.
You don't just show up at somebody's work and walk in the door one day.
Unless they ask for it. And
Unless you say like you have an open door policy for like next 4 days.
Everybody always shows up when I have the sign on the door that says, "Be right back for lunch." That's when all the most interesting people show up.
So I recorded a video, and I was going to start talking shit about sitting on the porch, and that's when you come walking up out of nowhere.
No, my first thought when I was across the street is, who's this schizo recording my door?
Yeah.
Because it's always like this area has like it has its unique selection of New Yorkisms to it. This like one couple of block segment over here.
Yeah,
that
trust
in the
me.
section of I-35 by East 6th Street.
Driving from the 71 to here, it was pretty hectic because people just walk out on the street here.
Yes.
I was like, what the hell you doing, man? It's like, this shit don't stop that fast. I mean,
Yeah, it really reminds you of New York City.
over by the college, people just walk right across. I'm like, okay, I got you.
Catherine says, congratulations for your child.
Thanks.
Let's see. All right. Well, that is about that. Thank you very much for taking time to do a video
Lewis.
and coming by.
Thanks very much, man. You guys, thank you all for watching.
Find him on the link in the description that I'll put down below for his YouTube channel. It's quality stuff. Cool guy.
All right, guys, I got to get.